Welcome to Pet Business Disruptors. I'm Clayton and I'm here today with Vicky and Jo Moorcroft, who are the owners and founders of the Canine Business Academy, the show of the #1 podcast, Let's Talk Dog Business, and the authors of a book called also Let's Talk Dog Business.
With strategy at the end.
With strategy. He slipped that in as well, because just going Let's Talk Dog is just not good enough. How's it going, guys? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Just had a rush to get on over here and forgot I had a meeting booked at 11. So I was like talking on the phone while I was wandering over here, but no, it was all good.
Good.
This does feel a bit weird for us because we're in our studio.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're interviewing us, which seems a bit the wrong way around for my brain.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, it's I suppose it's different, isn't it, being a guest compared to like hosting? Yeah. I actually say to people, I much prefer being a guest because it's just easier. Like, because you're kind of not having to direct the conversation. You can just sit there and sort of like pipe off, continuously, which is what I tend to do.
Wow, yeah. No, it's like boggling for my brain because I think we've just been recording hours, so we're in host mode, and now it's like, got to switch it into guest. So, we'll try not to take over.
Right. So, guys, like, obviously, you guys have been dog trainers for years. How did you get into the dog training thing originally, and, like, just sort of map out, if you can, like, sort of how you started to where you are? And what you sort of did along the way to get to that point.
Yeah, I'm going to let you kick off with this one.
Okay. So my journey into dog training was rescue. So I worked at the Blue Cross, and I actually started as an animal welfare advisor and then went into the dog behaviour role there. And I basically just got all the geek on about all the behaviour stuff and went into that, how can I prevent these problems happening in the first place? So I started puppy classes and went down the traditional route of doing that, and I had a franchise for a puppy organisation, puppy school, and I did that for, I think it was 2 years of just puppies, which in hindsight, looking back, if I'd stayed with just puppies, that would have been a really nice niche. But of course, what happened, like most dog trainers, I started offering adolescent classes and all of the other add-on stuff, and became like a jack of all trades and master of none, if you like. So that was me for a good, I don't know, I suppose it was like 14 years or so that I just kind of shifted and flowed and ebbed and like tried to do the best I could in that time. And then me and Jo met. I mean, I'm going to let you tell your story about how you got into it, but we met through, Jo came and watched my classes one day, which was it's a bit of a revelation thing in the industry as well, to actually allow people in to come and view your classes and find out what you do and have a little chat about how we can potentially work together. And that's what we started to do. And we met up in our little farm shop, coffee shop, a few times, and then we had this amazing epiphany moment one day that we wanted to help the industry because it's a bit of a shit show, and we thought things could be done better, and that's where Canine Business Academy was created, although there's a story around that because it wasn't originally called that, but here we are today. It's called Canine Business Academy. And then Jo's entry into dog training was a slightly different one.
Yeah, so mine was, I'd worked in corporate in ad agency world for about 13, 14 years. Climbed the corporate ladder, got to account director, did lots of marketing and print work for people. And then I got to the point where I wanted a dog. So I didn't grow up with animals. My family are very anti-animals. And I was never that way. I always liked them. Got a dog, got a husky for my first dog. And everyone's like, you fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, why does this make sense for you to get a husky when you're working like 80 hours a week and then you're going to go and get this type of dog?
Perfectly good Malinois out there you could have got.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Could have been worse.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah. So, got this husky, Leica, bless her, she's still with us today. She'll be 11 soon. And I wanted to basically put two fingers up to the world and go, I can do this. So I looked at the training more so for her, like enrolling in classes and getting some support, and thought, ooh, I like this. I was always really interested in behaviour anyway, like from a human perspective, but then it was really interesting looking at it from the dog. And then fell into it from a hobbyist side, I suppose, and then thought, actually, no, I'm going to do this full time. And then, yeah, that's kind of how I landed into it. But
yeah, and to go from that to, like I say, you know, doing the Canine Business Academy, like doing the podcast, I mean, that's quite a big leap of faith, to be honest, because obviously, you know, I obviously knew Vicky from when she was puppy school days, and there's a safeness in the franchise that you get leads handed to you. You know, you have like a corporate back almost in terms of like, you know, everything being kind of laid on for you, and then to sort of break free of that and become your own entity where you're actually training others, that's a big step. It's a big step. So like, what kind of drove you guys to sort of move from, you know, that to where you are now?
Well, it was a bit of it still is a transitional piece, because we do still do a bit of dog training. We can't really fit much in now because of all the focus on Canine Business Academy. But what we were seeing as a trend is that dog trainers are not earning anywhere near enough money, not even a living wage in a lot of cases. They haven't got any time. We've coined a phrase, scratting about. And I say this with love because this was me. I did a lot of scratting about for many years, because it's like, take whatever comes your way, work with any client, and then go through this process of going, I hate that client, I hate this, I hate the fact they're not committed. You know, there's lots of frustrations that we feel along the way. And because to a point we'd experienced it in lots of ways ourselves, and now hearing it through our community, and some of the places that dog trainers are in are really dark and deep. And so our driving mission is to change that and go like, it shouldn't be that way. Things need to change massively. So our mission is big. The goal is like, make a massive shift, because what we are doing as running our businesses in that way is we're doing our clients a disservice. They're not receiving the service they should be with their dogs. So if we're all about the dogs, it's actually for them as well.
Yeah, so I think for me, like that safety net of that secure job, whether it's the franchise or with me with the corporate, and then looking at it from our clients from CBA's point of view now, going, if you are starting on like either of those journeys that Vicky and I did, whether like Vicky went straight into it pretty much, like as in you knew you were always going to work with animals, and then me falling in it from the hobbyist side, I think that actually covers a wide array of trainers out there. And I think people jump into it wanting something more for themselves and wanting something more for the dogs. So I think that initial motivation of wanting more is what makes people leave that security bit. And then I think what Vicky was just saying, like with CBA, we feel that that's our mission now, to be able to provide that security by teaching people how to create it themselves.
Yeah, I think like whenever I think of dog trainers generally, and outside of puppy school, because I think puppy school is a good organisation, but I kind of look at it like the Wild West a little bit when it comes to dog trainers, dog walkers, that I think it's very hard for people to stand out. It's very hard to get clients. It's very hard to price yourself. There's no industry standard on things in terms of what's the correct training program to do, because things move so much, but also, you know, what should the consumer expect, and then what should the consumer pay? And the problem is that if I could say I'm a dog trainer tomorrow to some degree and say, well, I only charge like £10 an hour, and then somebody goes to let's say somebody who's been through years and years of training, and they're charging, let's say, a lot more because, you know, they probably know how to do it, whereas I ain't got a clue. And then they bulk at the price because the industry standards are it's kind of the Wild West. It's just like it's a mess, you know. So I think like actually having organisation and people behind that in terms of actually trying to organise the industry is important, because I think it is the people it affects the end consumer, because they're not getting the level of confidence and care and that sort of stuff that they should have. And I think it affects the people who are doing it because they're finding themselves being underpaid, struggling to get clients, struggling to differentiate themselves. And it seems like unless you've been on TV on some stupid program, that it's really hard to actually then get your name out and actually get that traction as to I am somebody who knows what they're doing. And look, we all know with dog trainers on TVs, like, they don't choose the best trainers. They choose people for typecast roles, and they get other trainers in behind the scenes to show them how to do stuff. So it's fantasy. TV is fantasy, but it sets up a weird line.
Yeah.
So how do you see what you're doing? How do you push that forward to your clients and actually really try and organise them and get that sort of sorted?
Yeah, well, I think firstly the comparing it to the Wild West is a perfect analogy. I love it. It is an absolute shit show that's out there, like you say. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody's winning because clients aren't getting a very good experience. Dog trainers and behaviour, they're not having a very good experience. And yes, okay, there are going to be the minority that are out there that are going, do you know what, I'm fine, it's all good, I'm working, I'm like, great, brilliant, keep doing what you're doing. But there is a massive majority that are going, I just don't know where to turn. I've got no stability with income. I'm attracting clients that I just don't like working with. I'm not attracting any clients. So-and-so's just popped up down the road, like you say, and then they're doing things for a tenner and I'm trying to do them for 30 quid, and now I've got to lower my prices to try and compete with them. And it's this mentality that I think a good majority of people are in. And like I said, no one is winning. So at CBA, we always say, what's the real reason that you're doing what you're doing? And let's lean in on that first. Then we have to start asking ourselves, where have I got knowledge gaps? Where have I got skill gaps? Because something that we are incredibly good at doing in this industry is procrastination through learning more dog knowledge. And I have been there, I have done it. As soon as somebody would release a course on this thing, I'm like, I'm in, let me do it. And it's just going to sit on my computer for about 6 months because I haven't got time to do it. Or look, there's a new conference that's just popped up. I need to go and do it and then learn some more information. And then so-and-so's just released that. And then that's more new information. And I think what ends up happening is we don't know our own identity. So we're kind of going, right, let me learn all the stuff. We then start surrounding ourselves with other business owners that are piss poor at being a business owner because we're an awesome dog trainer. And then we end up creating this cycle where nobody's winning, are they?
No.
So I think for us, it's about really looking inwards to go, who are you? What do you actually want? Let's look at the skills gaps. And if that's a business skill gap, then let's go find some resources that are going to help us set up a business that is sustainable, that has some structure behind it, that allows us to put, I hate the word boundaries, but I'm going to say it, that allows us to put some boundaries in place rather than just going, oh, I need to learn everything about dogs. Because actually we would argue that you're not in the business of dogs, you're in the business of people.
And you're in the business of sales at the end of the day and selling to people. And I know we've spoke to it before, but it is about differentiation in the market. And I think because things are so crazy out there, people, they get desperate for work and they just want to work with everybody who is available because they're so worried about, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills this month. And then that drives you down a weird path of, going further and further away from your core values and your core skill sets, to be honest. And it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, so how do you work with people? Let's say I am a dog trainer, and I would say, right, you guys, I want to kind of get involved with you. How do you work with people generally to actually improve their business and what they're doing in the market?
Ooh, good question.
So are you saying how do they physically work with this, or how do we get the information to them, or
everything? Let's say I'm just I'm all in. I'm all in.
He's in. You had him at hello.
I'm all in.
Okay, so if I've had you at hello, come and listen to the podcast. So that is our main way that we get that information across. So it's a nice free resource, as exactly this one is. So you'll get a good feel for how we do stuff off that podcast. Secondly, we've got a community group whereby I think we're creating a really nice, safe space in there, because we know that the industry is really toxic, and these Facebook groups, if anyone listening is in them, we know that that's where the doubt comes in, the desperation comes in. We're listening to all the noise and the voices in those groups. And actually, we've had people that have said like they're coming off social media altogether because of those groups. They can't deal with that sort of toxicity and stuff. So like being in the group, I think, is a place where we can sort of say whatever we want to say without the judgment, all that stuff. Now, I know that other people would say their groups are like that, but because we're focusing on the business side of things and not on the necessarily the methodology and all that controversial stuff, this is where we want someone to have a voice for that information, you know, and we can be there to support them. Other people can be there to support them with their journeys and stuff like that. So all the free ways, like we do free training in that group as well, are ways that we can help people consume that information. And we are really big on all the free stuff because we want people to be able to access it in lots of ways. We also have coaching programs as well. So we've got a group on and a one-to-one. But it's about, like Jo said earlier, it's about figuring out who you really are, because if you don't get that bit right, you can't then talk to the people you really want to attract. So a lot of the work that we do with people is around mindset. It's around finding out who you really want to be and like being true to yourself. Because if you're not true to yourself and you are just listening to what everybody else is saying, you will go down the wrong path easily and you will get into that desperation state. So the work is who are you? Why do you exist? Why did you become a dog trainer in the first place? And how can you start targeting the people you really want to bring into your world? So there's various means by how we do that, but we're very open and honest with our experiences, and we will invite other people to do the same. And again, back to that community group, that's what we're trying to attract in that group, is to say like, tell us, bare your souls, because we'll bare ours to you.
I think it's difficult because I think like the more you get into it, like it's good. Like when you say try and be true to who you are, I think there is like that. I'm from a product background, but loads of people want to go down the line of, well, everybody else is wearing a suit and tie, and everybody else is buying from China, and everyone else is doing this, and everyone else is doing that. This is how I have to be to make it in this industry. Whereas the reality is you just need to find an audience. You just need to find people who actually vibe with what you're doing. And as long as you're not like crazy strange, you'll find that, you know. And it's just about like saying, look, I got into be a dog trainer because I really love huskies, and I really liked, like working on them because I understand their natural drives, their natural instincts, and like trying to stay true to that mission. But it's very hard for people to do that because economics will kick in.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and that's where people need the help, is like saying, right, okay, I get, you're struggling, you need more money. Do you help them with things like saying, well, this is how you can increase your reach, this is how you can like find more clients and that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So as is like it's that full service, I suppose, of like bringing somebody on who's ready to make the changes in their business. Like they've got to that point where they're going, something needs to change, and I want something better. I want something better for myself. I want something better for the clients. I'm sick of just feeling like chasing money, like just working all the, whatever it is. It's that point of I need to move forward. So what we're in a really fortunate position to be able to offer people is that full suite, I suppose, of going, right, let's identify where you are. Let's look at almost like the business basics, which is actually the name of our signature program. Is like, let's look at the basics of business and let's identify the gaps, and let's plug and play these things into your business, which will then ultimately end up becoming a bespoke model for you, where you are identifying those people that, I really liked how you put it as well, that you're going to vibe with. Like, who are those people that are going to connect with you, and how can we create this amazing playground that everyone gets to come and play in, that is right for you and right for them. So it's identifying all of those different pillars. That
it's also one of the biggest things I find with people who provide services is their pricing strategies are usually awful, to be honest, in terms of like they underprice themselves a way out of the market, or they don't have a coherent pricing strategy. They're either so crazy expensive that no one would use them, or they're so cheap that they're just busy fools. Yeah. And like, actually just sitting down with someone saying, you know, you work 5 days a week, you need to make, let's say, £150 per day. You know, realistically, you can only see 4 clients a day because you've got a half hour to get to the next one, half hour to get to the next one. You need to factor in 4 weeks a year where you're going to be on holiday. You've also got to factor in time to do your books. So then what does your price be? And then it's like, okay, and then they might work out and go, oh, no one's going to pay that, because that's the natural thing is, oh, I've been charging £20 an hour.
Yeah.
And then saying, well, yeah, but okay, £20 an hour. Took you half hour to get there. Took you half hour to get home. You had a waffle for like 20 minutes afterwards. And then that's like 3 hours of your day gone, and you've earned 20 quid. Well, just get a job at McDonald's if that's what you want to do, because you're going to earn a lot more money.
And this is what's happening, that lots of people are getting jobs, secure jobs, let's put in inverted commas, in McDonald's or Tesco's or whatever.
But like they'd be better off on minimum wage because they're not actually really valuing their time. And look, there's going to be some trainers out there who just aren't good enough to command the price that they want in the market. And so then those are the people then you have to help them and say, look, I think you need to go back and do more training on this, because although everyone thinks they're worth a lot of money or worth what that market is the reason you might not be getting or holding clients is maybe you're not good enough at what you're doing, or you know, maybe there's a niche which you're good at, but you're taking on clients from outside your niche which you're not actually up to, and then you're creating a bad reputation around yourself. So there's a lot of different things around it, and people do need help with it.
Yeah, well, the money thing is really interesting because as an industry, we're not great with knowing the figures at all. And it's amazing, actually, when we talk through with our clients about, like, what are you paying out monthly? Like, what are your outgoings at home and for the business? Like, what are we needing the minimum amount to be? And so many just don't even know the answer.
They're ostriches, as I refer to them.
Say an ostrich. We don't even know like what's going out every month. So like that's the first thing. And then we don't have a clue what's coming in. And then we don't project, and we don't know what we need to make, like exactly how you were describing there. We don't know what that figure needs to be. So what's the goal, and how do we find that, how do we figure out what we're going to, I hate the word charge, but what those fees are going to be based on the fact that this is what we need to be bringing in, and we need a buffer, and we need to be able to enjoy life. So like there's an excess there for holidays, and like it's all that contingency stuff, I suppose, that people aren't really thinking about.
But just from my experience running a business, is there's lots of things that you price into your weekly expenses, which again, if you don't do it, people not paying you, you get knocked occasionally. You get let's say, look, when you're selling stock, you'll get damaged stock, you get lost stock, you'll get stuff that gets stolen from you. You have to price that in as a percentage. You have to, like when you're selling stock, damages, you have to allow for a certain percentage of damages, and these are all part of the general mix. That if you just say, well, if I buy it for £1 and I sell it for £2, making £1, right? Brilliant. Sell 50 of them. Sell 500 of them, I'm making £500 a week. And then they're not fully, everyone understands they've got to pay rent and rates or whatever else they've got, or electricity, but there's lots of other hidden costs. And also it's at the end of the day, you need to make money for yourself, and you need to actually, and when you price something up, when you price up a service, it's no different to pricing up a product. You need to be able to price it to a level by which all of your business costs are covered, and you're making money, and you have the ability to employ people once you hit a certain critical mass. I don't know if you ever listened to Chris Do. So he talks. He's like a graphic designer, and he talks a lot about sort of creatives and making money as creators. And one thing he always says is that when you price a job, you should always price it at, if you want to scale your business. If somebody else would charge, let's say, £30 an hour, you could get a contractor in to do it for £30 an hour. You should charge £45 an hour.
Yeah.
And set it that form, because that way then, if something happens, you're ill, you can't do it, you've got too much work on, you can get a contractor in to do it, you also make the money. because the problem is when you're only pricing on the bare minimum you need to survive, you don't allow yourself any leeway to scale. You don't leave yourself any leeway to get beyond that critical mass, because is it like, for some people it's just about earning a basic living, but what about, you break your leg, my other half lost her leg in a car accident, and like she was unable to work for 4 or 5 years, and what if that happens to you? I mean, God hopes it never will, but at least you can get people to cover your work. Otherwise your entire business that you've spent like 5-10 years building up dissipates overnight.
Yeah.
And so it's about allowing yourself that flexibility to actually then move in and say, well, long term, I don't need to be doing every single thing. I can do more admin, or I can spend more time training, learning different ways, seeing if I can institute new things to make my product as good and as fresh as possible.
Yeah, and this is where the mindset work comes in, doesn't it? Because a lot of people would say in answer to that, oh, but that would be being greedy. Like, I can't charge more than what it costs me, because then I'm looking like I don't care about the person. I don't care about the dog. And we hear this. We hear this a lot.
Yeah. I need to be affordable. But then also, like, I don't even think people are, I don't know. I see it a lot in entrepreneurs in general, but it's like, no, everything needs to stay with me. I don't want the idea of a team. Oh God, I've then got to step into like a management role and do all of this, and no. And then what if that person lets me down? I've got to train that person to my standard. I've got to do all this stuff. And then I think for a lot of people, the idea of bringing somebody on, even in like those dire situations where it's like, well, hold on, what needs to happen here? If that happens, like, well, you're just going to be at risk of losing an income. I think this is where that saving mentality comes in. It's like, oh, put so much money away each month so you've got your little nest egg. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't think of anything worse. Personally, it gives me the ick. I was like, a nest egg.
But it comes down to that fear mentality as well, isn't it? It's like that scarcity fear thing of like, collect all the stuff together, put it in a little place. Whereas actually what we want people to do is actually think about that like, preventing that feast and famine, like because it's almost that, because you get a good month and you're like, quick, squirrel it away, because the next month might be shit. And actually we want you to have like a sustainable business that means you can ride through, and it is more level, like, rather than having these massive peaks and troughs in your business. So how can you actually set that business up so that you're going to ride through the storms if they're there?
Yeah, and like it's funny, like you're saying that people think you're greedy if you put money on top of things. I remember years ago in the wholesaler side, like one of the guys who was working for me saw one of the invoices of what I paid for stuff, and he goes, "Yeah," he said, "I'm onto you." He said, "I'm onto you." He said, "You buy that for £4 and sell it for £5." It's like, that's business, right? I mean, it's like, do you know what?
I'm onto you.
I'm onto
Private
you.
detective.
He said, "I'm onto you." He said, I won't tell anyone. He said, "I know what you're doing." It's like, yeah, weird, right? I mean, it's like, but again, it's sort of like, but that's the difference between like a business mindset and not having a business mindset. Is you think, well, I can't get a contractor in and put a margin on that because then it will be more expensive. But what the customer wants is they want that service. They want to know that they book it with you, they're going to get what they want. They're going to get it paid. If they pay £45 for an hour, they're going to get like a result from that hour. And as long as you can provide that through using somebody else, if it's not yourself, but it also gives you more flexibility to take on more clients and not have to say to people, "Sorry, can't fit you in for the next 6 weeks because I'm just too busy."
Yeah.
Like, because you want your business to be scalable. You want to, like, have work in the good times as well as the bad. Because if it is, let's say, a feast and famine situation, let's say everyone wants to train a dog in the summer, no one wants to do it in the winter. Well, that's fine, but like, what do you do? What do you do in the winter? So you turn the work away in the summer, and then in the winter, what? You just skint? Like, is that how it works? Like, again, and it's having that guidance. And like I say, the problem I see with dog training or dog walking is there is a Wild West aspect to it where people, they are just making it up on the hoof. They're not really thinking about how much do I actually need to live on? Like, what is my service actually worth? Like, what are my deliverables? They're just offering like this very sort of like in the ether, like property to people, which people then can't value.
Yeah.
And because people are like balking because they're not really sure what they're getting, you then like get nervous and you start charging less and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
And it even comes down to things like payment providers. Like dog trainers are really scared too, because lots of things are done via like backs payments or cash and stuff. And it's like we're trying to get across, like, if we're going to increase professionalism here and we want you to look like a real proper business owner, then I'm afraid those fees are, you know, like, so let's say like Stripe, for example. So we use Stripe for our invoicing. Oh, we can't do that because it's going to cost me more money. And I don't really want to pass that on to the client because that's not their problem. Well, in every other aspect of you buying something, that cost is passed on to the client, I'm afraid. So you do it every day when you buy something. Yeah. And also, we don't need to disclose that fee. Like, it just goes within your fees anyway. So we're just we're just adapting according to what we're having to take on. So, you know, but there's a real blocker around those kind of things. And this is why for us it's done in that kind of like weird backs payment, like no receipt, no official, like, I don't know.
It comes across as that hobbyist bit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I've just got, I'm doing this thing where I'm just playing around, and then, do you want to give me a tenner? Yeah, just sort me out with cash, or like just sort me out with a drink or something. And then it just kind of, and then we've ended up in this toxic environment then where we're talking to other people that are doing that, and it's like, oh, but you know, it's a bit skint, and like, do you find that client like really pissed you off? I'm like, yeah, actually. And then it snowballs into this thing of what we've now got in the environment of people going, well, no one wants to pay for anything. All the excuses, like clients are shit, they don't care about the dogs, they don't do this, they don't do that. And it's like, hold on, like we as the individuals have created this.
Yeah. But it's funny, and this is why chain businesses work so well. So like McDonald's, even if you don't like McDonald's, you'll still eat at McDonald's because you have an expectation of what you're going to get when you're in there. You know that like you're going to get a Big Mac and it's going to taste okay and you're not going to get ill and like it's going to do the job, right? Whereas and that's why I like Puppy School, for example, because they set up like it was like a standard that people could work to. And the problem is when you're working on the hoof like that and you start going down this line, it's just, oh yeah, just stick a tenner in my skyrocket sort of like trading. It doesn't fill people with confidence, and actually it doesn't breed loyalty either, because you think that like the customer likes it because, you know, just a bit of cash, give us 20 quid. Well, actually what they want is that they've got a problem, they want it solved. And actually if there was a recognised brand that they could take them to, and that's, I suppose, you know, where dog trainers are still relatively lucky is there hasn't been like a massive brand creation within the space. They could easily just get cut out of this because people would naturally just go, oh, want my dog trainer, take it to Dog Trainers Are Us. And because, and then they would be charging what the real price is. I mean, look, people use things like Vets for Pets. People use the groom room inside Pets at Home. And they don't use it because they think they're going to get the best veterinary service ever. And they don't think they're going to get the best, like, groomer. They're not. No one's under the illusion they're going to get a award-winning groomer grooming their dog in the groom room in Pets at Home. But they take it there because they understand that there's a level of service which is going to come attached to that price. Yeah. And that level of service is going to be standardised across the industry.
I think it's an awareness thing as well, though. So actually, what I don't think dog businesses in general are very good at doing is talking about themselves and building their own personal brand with it. Because it is like that wild, wild west bit, and it is a case of like, oh God, I've got the imposter syndrome, I'm not very good at this, and so-and-so's just popped up down the road, and now I need to undercut. And you're creating this environment, and what dog trainers are really good at as well is slagging other people off. Like if someone's like, if there is another dog trainer that has just popped up in your area and perhaps you don't agree with either the method or you don't agree with their price point or whatever it is, somehow you end up sharing a post on your page, your business page, or even your personal page, which you are operating your business from, and going, don't go to this person. Or even like we alluded to earlier, like you've got people on like TV personalities. Why should your business that you're trying to create this know, like, and trust factor with your clients, and you are then slating TV presenters for their dog training aspect, going like, oh God, this guy doesn't know anything. And it's different in this space because we're not talking to our clients, but people are using their shop front windows to slate everybody. And even with, I've seen so many people like slate, places like the groom room. And I'm like, you're not really creating a place of trust that a client is going to want to exchange any money with you and do some business with you.
Nobody likes people who slag people off.
No.
Like, I have never, like, in my whole professional career, gone into a store and slagged off the competition, because even if I know they suck, even if I know that they're absolute comedians, because it doesn't make me look good.
No.
What makes me look good is saying, this is what I do, this is like how often I can deliver, this is the speed at which I do it, this is the quality. Like, you don't need to slag people off, because if they suck, everyone will know they suck eventually. And like, by you telling everyone they suck, it just makes you look like a bitter, horrible person, to be honest.
Yeah.
And look, people buy people. So if you are that person who's going around saying, "Well, there's that dog trainer," or I don't like, they're like Caesar Milan, like and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, well, okay, well, maybe you like that. Maybe that person likes that, and like, are you much better? Because I tell you what, one thing is true is that if you just sat there and slagged off someone, I'm going to be over analysing what you're doing. Because that's the normal reaction, is that, okay, they're fine to slag everyone else. You better make sure you are squeaky clean. Yeah. You better, if you're not whiter than white, I'm going to be like, huh, they slagged them off, but do you see what they did? Whereas otherwise, you just let it go, Do you know what I mean? You just, weren't overly impressed by that, but I don't really give a shit, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you could put that energy that you're putting into that other person into your own stuff, like, how awesome would you be?
Yeah, so it's like, who are you talking to? Who are you as the individual? Who is your service and product aimed at, and how is it going to help them? Like, what's the outcome somebody is going to get from working with you? And actually, we don't do that. We are supposed to be in an outcome-based business, and actually what we're focusing on is the tangibles. So everyone just goes, oh yeah, well, you can work with me for 3 sessions, 2 sessions, 5 sessions. Which one? Like, do this. Oh, you could come to my puppy class. You could do this. I'm like, what? Like, what are you known for? Which one's going to get me the best result? Because it's overwhelming. And I think this goes back to that comment I made earlier of that we're in a people business. Like, you have to talk to the consumer. The dog's not buying from you. The dog's not going to go, oh, okay, thank you. You operate in this way. Like, please come and work with me. You've got to talk to the human. And the human, if they see you as a generalist, they are going to not expect a huge amount. Like, if you are positioning yourself as a specialist in your area, whether that's a locality, whether that's a niche, whether that's, like you're working with a certain type of person, and your messaging and that branding really speaks to that individual. So when that person is seeing your brand pop up, they're like, oh my God, it's like they're talking to me. That's what you want to start creating. Well,
yeah, and you need to look. Nobody, I don't believe anybody like would just be if they're doing a Google search, will just go super general. Like, if you've got a husky that's a nutter, you're googling.
Yeah, of course you are.
Husky behavioural training or something like that. You're not, because if you've got a line of people, because we're like awash with information, we're awash with people we can deal with, and if you've got a line of people, the only way you can distinguish is by their specialities. And if you are a generalist, then you may as well be nothing, to be honest. And look, I've always suffered with this problem personally, because running a business, you become a generalist because you'll get used to doing the buying, you get used to negotiating contracts, you get used to doing sales, you get used to dealing with customers, you get used to fixing lorries. I trained to be a mechanic at one point so that I could understand how the vehicles worked. But it puts you in a weird spot where you just end up like this incredibly general person. And so then when if you were going looking for a job and say, oh, what would you like to do? So I can do anything really. And so that's no good, is it? That's absolutely useless.
Yeah, and the only thing then to compare one person to the next is the price.
Yeah.
And that's where we're driving people down on price, or we're being driven down by price, or that's the perception that we think that people are doing. But actually, there isn't anything else to pull them in. So of course they're going to, hang on a minute, the dog trainer down the road is charging like 30 quid less an hour than you. Like, what have you got to bring to the table? Right. So that's where that kind of show your skill set, have something that they're not doing.
Well, it comes down to
creative.
The stuff you can't quantify. So I think I'm better.
How?
All right. Okay.
How are you better?
By what metric, Like, how do you metricize how much better you are than the guy down the road? And like I say, it's only specialism that can actually metric that. And, and that's what I say is that actually you have to pick a lane.
Yeah.
Because it's such a crowded market out there.
And also, because we're working with the human, it's a very personal thing. Like, not every owner is going to want every dog trainer because they have to gel with them. They're going to have to receive the information in a way where it works for them. And they need to, like, potentially, if we're encouraging people to work with somebody for longer because that's what the result, like, that they want needs, like that it requires that length, you've got to get on with the person. And if that owner knows nothing about you, has no clue whether that is the case, they could potentially buy your services and then go, oh God, I hate them, I'm stuck with them now. And vice versa, as the dog trainer, you're going to go, shit, I've got them for 3 to 6 months or however long the service is, can't get out of this now. Now I'm moaning about the client, now I hate them, now not earning enough money. All the same things come back around in this cycle again. So it's knowing who you are. It all comes back to that thing of knowing who you are, who you want to attract.
Yeah, and that's something you offer now, right? So you're out there converting, trying to get some organisation into trainers and trying to get them sort of like geared up for it.
That's it. I mean, even just like tagging onto that specialism bit, like ultimately we are business strategists. We know how to do business. We could target anybody. We could be that general practitioner going like, yeah, we'll just work with anyone. Yeah. But we've gone down that specialism of trainers and behaviorists. Like, yes, it could open it broadly, but actually all of our messaging is trainers, behaviorists. It's Canine Business Academy. It's aimed at dog folk. That's the specialism. And with that, you can command those higher investments because it is that specialist bit. Like, you could go out to anybody and go, like you say, even with that husky bit, you could go to your general practitioner, you could go to your local puppy class, you could go to a general one-to-one training and go, oh, can you help me? Can you help me? And then if someone was constantly popping up and you were seeing it in your feed regularly, or you were getting an email or whatever it is, all the marketing stuff, and they're going like, look at this husky transformation, like, look at this husky that I was working with. This husky was presenting this behaviour. This person felt like this because of their husky. And all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, that's me. Yes, please. And if that fee was a lot higher, I'm like, I don't care. Because I feel like I'm going to get the result with you than I am over the GP.
It's funny, I've got a really good friend of mine in America. He's like a music master, so he masters music. He's like a Grammy award-winning music master. And it's the same thing for him, like, because I've sat down with him and like gone, you need to lean in, because he's won like Grammys for his jazz music, for the jazz music he's mastered and that. But when he like puts himself into the market, he's just a masterer. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of like, and when I first looked at his books, I'm like, you're charging way too little. He was like charging $100 a song to some people. Like, the going rate in the industry is like $400 for like someone who's like upper to mid range, and this guy is like he's like one of the best. And you're like, he goes, yeah, I know, but it's sort of like, you know, they get referred, and the person who referred them was paying $100. I'm like, you're just becoming like, and he was insanely busy, but with like really crap work. I said, you know, again, because the problem is that the people he ends up attracting are the people who haven't had their mix done properly because they're doing it cheaply. And so rather than getting the right level of work for him, he ends up getting like just this spread of work of like loads of really crappy work, because people are just buying on price rather than buying on what he actually can produce. And because he's not leaning into the jazz music and rap, which he like is exceptional at mastering, which are both really hard things to master, he's then leaving money on the table and not really promoting himself properly. So it was like we had like this whole strategy session where we're just talking about it. But again, it's like, he's a masterer. He's not a business person per se. He's just an outstanding practitioner when it comes to hearing music. And it's the same with dog trainers, is that you just end up with like loads of work you shouldn't be doing, but also not leaning into what you should be doing. Like, you know, you could, you know, if you won an award for training northern breeds, and then not to be shouting about that, it sounds crazy from the outside, but it's more common than you think, because people, they don't actually, they're so deep in their business, so deep into what they're doing, they can't actually see the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, not at all. And I think actually what we're a massive believer of, that imposter syndrome is rife. I think it's rife in every industry, but it feels particularly rife as a dog trainer. And it is our genuine belief that you could banish that by being a specialist, because suddenly you'd cut out all the noise. You're not going to go to that generalist conference. You're not going to go and do those generalist courses. You're going to focus solely on the thing that you are going to become the expert in. And I mean, it's like, even for us, haven't we? Like we've made a very strong, valid choice of, oh God, over 12 months ago now, to go, right, if we're going to do this, everything else has to stop, and that laser hyper-focus bit just goes all in on business. And that's all we're going to do. And now we're the specialist, and we feel like we're creating this amazing brand that people can recognise because of that specialism.
It's quite hard to call yourself an expert on something, though. Like, and I understand it's impossible, because I'm the same. I didn't call myself an expert until about a year or two ago, even though I've been doing it my whole life. Just because in your own head, it's very hard to sort of like put yourself forward and actually do that. But you have to do that at some point, because if you don't say, well, I'm an expert at X, then like people will only believe what you tell them to some degree. I mean, then it's down to you to back them up. If you're saying, I could say I'm an expert in, I don't know, photography or something, so sometime I'm going to get called out on that, and if I'm not, then I'm going to look like a complete dunce. But if you are genuinely really good at something, but it also drives you to, if you declare yourself an expert, it should also drive you to know more as well. Yeah. And the imposter syndrome thing is important, because I think everybody suffers with it. The people, when you're self-aware, you suffer from imposter syndrome. So if you're self-aware about who you are and about what you bring to the table, you will always suffer from imposter syndrome. But that should also be used as a mechanism to keep learning and to keep driving into that niche, which you know a lot about. And then look back in a year and say, was I an imposter then? Am I an imposter now? Do you know what I mean? And then look at other people and say, like the example I always use was, I thought that I was very mediocre in my industry until I stood in front of a board of people and realised most of them didn't know what the hell they were talking about, like of so-called experts. And then you're like, well, you guys actually literally you're just all copying the same thing everybody else is saying and passing it off as your own. Whereas actually, when you are actually an expert, you see the multi-layers of stuff, and you shouldn't be scared to actually thrust yourself into that light, into that niche, and say, well, I am an expert. But then when you do that, it is also imperative you back it up, and if you are weak on anything, get learning. Get really, really push yourself into that.
Yeah, and I think if you don't do that and you don't own that expert role, I'm going to lean into my zone of genius, I'm going to own that, you're going to get left behind in the market. And again, we're back to that. What's someone going to compare? How are you going to stand out next to the next dog trainer? There's nothing there, is there? So, okay, carry on doing what you're doing. Keep being a generalist. Target everyone. But the people who are going to be the experts and are going to own it, are going to have their niches, and they're going to target those Daxi owners, the Husky owners, the people who are going to go, I'm in with that because that is resonating with me. They're going to be always better than you then. And you are literally going to be in this spiral of like frustration, overwhelm, confusion. So it's, yeah.
Because also you got to remember that most consumers aren't high information on this stuff, and I always put it back to the rule Canine breed specific diets, that they create breed specific diets which are actually really crappy. They just change the kibble shape, and it's a crappy diet. But because it says Dachshund food,
yeah, it does well. Probably.
Yeah, it does well because low information people, they just want a solution. So if you point a solution to somebody in a way that they can understand, they'll go for that. And so that's why you have to be niche, because if you make it a complex process of whether they can understand whether you do what you need them to do, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. And actually, think of yourself as a consumer with this, because I've got Sighthounds and I use a company, I don't know if you've heard of them, Red Hound for dogs, that make Sighthound clothing. And it's only a very small business, but they are always busy. They've always got a waiting list. They've always got increased lead times because of the demand, and they cater for all Sighthounds. So I've got an Italian Greyhound, but they do anything from an Italian up to a regular size Greyhound. And it's that kind of thing where they could make jumpers for any dogs. but they make them for sighthounds. And they always talk to, like, they have a podcast now, actually. They've just started a podcast talking about sighthounds and stuff. But everything they do is sighthound related. All the links they've got are other sighthound business. Like, it all links together. And that's what we were just talking to somebody that we interviewed recently. It's saying, like, it opens the opportunities to link to other businesses that do have the same audience as you, basically. That, like, imagine you linking up with other sighthound specialists. So you're a sighthound dog trainer. Like, in fact, we've got somebody in our community that is a specialist sighthound dog trainer, and it's like, who could you connect with? Maybe that company that makes the jumpers, and then you connect with somebody else that specialises in food for sighthounds, if there is such a company. And it's all of that stuff that you go, instead of having that fear around niching, go like, look what it could do, look at the possibilities it could create for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what was the driver to start doing the podcast originally? Because, like, let's just talk about that. Like, so you have your own podcast. It's been running, what, a year now?
Yeah, just nearly a year this month. Yeah.
Called Let's Talk About Dog Business. What actually made you put yourself out there and actually start doing this? Because obviously, like, I do it, and you know, you do. I have my own reasons for doing it, and mine was just to create awareness around the industry and that sort of stuff. But it's also a big undertaking to do it.
Oh yeah. It's a massive commitment to do it.
Now, I think for us, we knew we wanted to inspire change in the industry, and we knew we needed to start. We just didn't feel like anyone was talking about anything, but we feel like loads of people are having the same conversations, but just behind closed doors. And it's it can be such a lonely industry, because you're off doing your own thing, you're stuck in your own head. Then you've got these toxic Facebook groups. It's like, where am I turning to for any kind of support? Because no one's talking about it. Or if they are, it doesn't feel loud enough, because, like, we've been in it collectively for like 27 years and it doesn't feel there's anywhere to really turn.
Yeah, and look, just talking about toxic Facebook groups, my experience with them is it's either somebody has a problem, it's either everyone piles on and batters them, or everyone piles on and batters the customer.
Yeah.
It's like
one or the other.
It's one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
There's no actual real, like, advice or help. It's sort of like you're evil, or they're idiots, you know.
Or we blame the customer. That's the problem.
It. It's just all this shitty stuff. So we were like, no, let's stop having these conversations behind closed doors, and let's open the doors and let's everybody in. And then, like, we knew we wanted to create Canine Business Academy, CBA, and we thought, right, we're going to actually do the work that we say we do, which is that client avatar. Like, who are they? Where do they live? What are they doing? Where are they shopping? What are their pain points? All of this. And we knew that for the scale we wanted to reach people at, like, the podcast just felt like the perfect solution to go, you get to know us, we get to bring something to life that we know, that we feel personally that the industry desperately needs. And off the back of it, like, we always knew that it had the potential to be big, and we've been blown away with the support for people just saying things like, it's like you're in my head. Like, I needed that today. I look forward to hearing your episode drop every week because it keeps me going. And that's the whole reason why we do it.
And we wish there were more episodes. We're like, we wish we could facilitate more episodes.
Yeah.
No, it's difficult because it is, like, time consuming. Yeah. Like, I think I totally underestimated how much of my time would be spent doing it, to be honest.
Well, we've just added a podcast membership now, so you can get these additional episodes, but we've put them behind a membership wall just because of how deep they go into, because, like, they're almost little mini masterclasses.
And the other thing the podcast has opened up for us is what we're trying to promote in this industry more of is collaboration in a really positive way that helps both parties. So it's a win-win. We talk a lot about win-wins, and it's like, with the podcast, it's enabled us to open up conversations with people that we may not necessarily have been able to before. And it gives you that kind of purpose behind, come on our podcast, have a voice. And actually it helps our audience and it'll help your audience. And yeah, it's enabled us to actually reach more people, because some of the, like, we're going to a conference in May to speak at a dog trainer, Kim Brophy. I don't know if you've heard of Kim. but we're going to speak at her conference. And that came off the podcast. So because we had her on the podcast, we opened up some like collaborative work in the background, and now we're going to that. And that's an amazing opportunity, again, for us to reach, like we've got a couple of clients in the US, but it opens up those doors to get all of this messaging that we're saying, like we want to help these people. We want you to change your businesses for the better. So it enables us to get that voice out further as well.
And it's funny, actually, just I think like the scale of how far and wide it goes. I mean, I've had people from lots of different countries like just send me messages and like just say they like it. And
it's great that though, isn't it?
It's
the impact you have on people.
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
I find it kind of odd, to be honest, because I've never been a public person, to be honest. I've always been very much in the background, and you know, I think like my social media was just a photo dump of the weird places I go on holiday. That was about it, really. You wouldn't really hear much from me other than that. So to do this has been like a weird level of exposure, to be honest.
And it pushes you out your comfort zone a lot, doing a podcast, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And look, for me, it's fine because I'm a salesperson, really, by like at heart, and so I just like talking, to be honest, and I just like talking shit, and I like talking about the industry, so it's easy for me. It's easy just like to find out what people are doing, and I kind of have a lot of fun doing it. So.
Yeah, it's most interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, I've learned a shitload. I've learned a lot from doing it. I mean, because you're listening to other people's perspectives. I mean, and everyone's perspective teaches you something else. You know, so yeah, it's definitely helped me, like just sort of like become more complete as a person, to be honest.
Yeah, and actually you learn from the guests that you have on as well, because we do every time. We're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before, but actually them saying it has made it kind of really sink in. So yeah.
And you also wrote a book.
We did
write a book.
How did that go? I've written so I've not written something for the pet industry, but I was a featured author on Abkhazia 1992 to 2022.
Oh.
So that I wrote a piece on the environmental degradation caused by frozen conflict in the South Caucasus. But I've never.
Wow.
So that's my personal passion project. Is I'm into unrecognised states.
Wow.
But I also know how long it took me to write this and how much proofreading I had to do, and it's a real labour of love writing long form books. So.
It's definitely a labour of love.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Our labour of love actually lasted like 6 to 8 weeks though. So we gave ourselves a deadline because and again, I think, tying it back in with the business and the strategy, like we knew we were going to be sponsoring an in-person event. It was a conference, and we knew that we had an incredible opportunity to connect with our audience there and give away a copy of our book, essentially. So back in, I forget the timeline now, but it was earlier in the year, and we're like, right, we know we want to give away this book at this conference. So, Mr. Publisher, can you please help us understand what the timeline needs to be? And they were like, really? Are you sure you want to do this? It's like, it's going to be about 6 weeks you need to write it in then. And we're like, okay, challenge accepted.
There's 2 of us, half the load.
Yeah, it's like, challenge
doable.
accepted, we'll do it.
A case of Monster each.
It was
We put
long
ourselves under a bit of
nights.
pressure. There were holidays between that period as well.
It was
May to July.
Yeah, it was an intense period, but we did it. And again, I think the only reason we did it was because it was part of that strategy. We knew exactly what needed to go in the book. We knew exactly who we were talking to. We knew exactly what we wanted the outcome to be when somebody read that book. And yeah, managed to get it all done in that time frame, and then it was just off to the publishers and then back and forth with them doing the majority of the proofreading and us just signing off final copies and everything. And then we got it done, and it launched in November 24th.
And it was really interesting because when we go, I don't think we made it quite clear enough really, but we had a little, for the conference, everyone had a goodie bag, and in the goodie bag was a little flyer saying, and we thought everyone's going to look in the bag, look at the flyer, come to our stand, get a free book. No. So we'd got this table full of books, right? And we're like, no one's coming to get their book. Like, what's going on? They're free. And it transpires that because the bag was so full of stuff, nobody had looked at all of the flyers in there and the free stuff in there. So we ended up doing a chalkboard saying, come and get your free book. It's honestly free. And people are like, is is it actually free?
Yeah.
Oh, we just thought you'd have to pay. And we're like, no.
Start shouting out like a
It's
market stall owner,
yeah,
like, free book, come and get your free book.
It's a free. The signature's 20 quid though.
Yeah. But no, like, but the other sponsors who some of them also had books, they were like, are you giving this away for free? Like,
real?
why are you not making people pay for it? And we was like, it's not our strategy, because actually now they're in our world and we can serve and support, because our mission is to genuinely serve and support. And the paid bit for us is we're going to help you implement it. And it's the same way we look at it in our dog training business. I'm like, I'm going to basically tell you, person who owns a dog, I'm going to tell you everything that I know. You will pay for me to help you implement it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the information's already out there. Like,
Yeah.
just go on YouTube and teach your dog to sit, stay, whatever it is you want them to do.
Well, I always say this anyway, is like, I'm happy to tell people everything, because there's a big difference between me telling you what to do and you actually doing it.
Yeah,
So
huge difference.
You know, so it's like, I can explain to you how to do stuff, and like, that's how I do it, but nothing ever runs quite like that. There's always glitches here and things will go wrong there. And like, you know, so it doesn't make me any less like giving away my knowledge as such.
No.
Because there's a lot more in the actual execution of things than there is in
Well, that's it. It's like the phrase, if you pay, you're going to pay attention.
Yeah. And how many copies do you print off?
So when we launch,
If it's less than 1 million?
oh God, yeah.
All right, Clayton, hang on. Give us a chance.
Look, I'm not even going to answer this question now.
No, I'm joking. Go on, how many-
Because it goes through Amazon, we don't actually have physical copies. The only reason
No,
we
so
have
everybody bought, everyone buys the copies on Amazon. However,
and Waterstones now.
is it print to order, is it?
Yeah.
yeah, but we can actually, and it's part of our strategy for this year that we're going to actually bulk buy a load of the copies so that we can either give them away or
And how
lowball it a
much
little
is
bit.
it?
$13.99 on Amazon.
Nice. And is it on Kindle as well?
It is.
Yep.
Yeah. Waterstones.
Waterstones and another one that I can't remember the name of.
No, I can't remember.
How much is it on Kindle?
Oh,
now
it's
you're
less.
asking.
I think it's
What,
$6.99
$6.99, I think,
actually.
yeah.
And actually, it's in the college now. Solihull
Oh,
College.
yeah. So my university, because I stupidly decided to do an animal behaviour degree like 3 years ago, because why not? Finishing that off this year. They have actually ordered copies and it's sat in the library now, and they shared a little post about it. So I was
Wow.
like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, my book's actually in St Andrews University and City University, I think. Yeah, so that's quite a kick, right? That you've got all these
Yeah.
university geeks looking at your stuff.
Yeah, that's it. It's pretty cool.
My aim
Pretty
is
cool.
to get our book in Tesco's, though. I just have this thing in my head, right? I'd love to see it when you walk into Tesco.
I don't know, just grab your bananas and then grab a
Waitrose.
book.
You should start with Waitrose.
Wait, oh yeah.
Why
it's fine.
Tesco?
I don't know, because that's the
'Cause
one
that's
I'd
where
go in. Grab a sandwich and a book.
Okay.
That's it.
But no, that's really cool. It's really cool. And yeah.
And
wicked.
actually, the book has been really well received because it transpires people are using it a bit like a workbook to actually do the work, which is really nice. So we're getting lots of messages from those who are starting to implement things through it, which is lovely. And again, it's like that. There's the book. Like, if that's enough for you to get on with doing the work, awesome. If you need more, we're here for more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wicked. So, if people want to get hold of you, what's the best way of doing it?
caninebusinessacademy.com, or search on all the socials for Canine Business Academy.
Or go on, search on Apple Podcasts, etc. for Let's
Oh, yeah.
Talk
Well
Dog
done.
Business.
Do my
All the
job
major
for me.
Yeah, we might as well promote the
And also go on Amazon and buy a copy of Let's Talk Dog Business
Strategy.
Strategy.
But if you go on the website, all of that is on there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a million. I'd say thanks for coming in, but I'm the one who came in. So.
See how this has been frying our brains?
Yeah.
It's really confusing. No. Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime.